But yeah, so we cut a long story short, we just thought we needed to do something, and rather than nothing. And rather than go on a bitch hunt because of some of the stuff, we made a clown cry. Who does that? We made a clown cry. This young girl set up an event for the kids, donated a small businesswoman, came all the way in. She would normally charge $500. And impatient parents were so rude to her, she came to us in tears. That's one of a dozen examples. I hadn't been involved in a parent body before. I hadn't been involved in fundraising. I haven't been involved in any of this stuff. And I'm standing there thinking, oh my God. So when we gave them the check for $23,000, they invited us in and said, look, well done, thank you very much. I said, would you like some feedback? They said yes. Big mistake. So I spoke up. And what I said is that let's focus on our school motto. The next event I Googled falls on World Kindness Day, 13th of November. I see everyone writing that down now. 13th of November is International World Kindness Day. I didn't know anything else about it. This is 2010. And we hadn't established World Kindness Australia, and we hadn't done anything. We hadn't spoken to anybody. It was just as a school, just as a dad, concerned about the parent behaviour that could impact on the kids and on the community. And the response that I got, I said, well, let's write the school motto, kindness at the next event, since it falls on World Kindness Week. And the response I got is, what's the appropriate level of kindness? We don't want to overdo it.
You don't want to be too
I didn't know how to answer that, actually. I was going to say more than the appropriate level of meanness.
Yeah.
But I listened to my mum. If you don't have anything nice to say, and actually I'll get back to that later. Remind me to get back to that later, because I'm actually blaming my mum and my mum's mum for a lot of the stuff that we actually do that's unkind. But after pulling a few teeth, Jason would appreciate that, we got it over the line, had an event, and this school only has 300 kids. 3,000 people turned up. The mayor turned up. We had this kindness event in Sydney, and you've got to remember the demo, you've got to remember where it is too, in that area. So it got some attention, but I realised the problem of this, because during the time of organising this, there were reports on television of children, teenagers, dying. Australian teenagers going into a room and choosing to end their life. Their parents put them to bed that night and say goodnight, kissing them on the forehead, and when they go to get them for breakfast in the morning, they're hanging from a ceiling fan. I know their names, I know what happened, I know another one that intervened in Queensland, I know what happened on a sports field, I know. All of a sudden, once I started doing this, my radar was turned on and I became so aware. It wasn't a white noise anymore. I could see what's going on. I can see in this room who's talking to who and who's being left out. And there's not a lot of people being left out. In fact, this is really an inclusive environment, and that's one of the issues. Because the reason why someone chooses to end their life is because they feel alone. They don't value. They feel they're not valued. So, for me, getting that message of what a kinder world would look like. Maybe in a kinder world, somebody would be noticed. Maybe in a kinder world, somebody would be invited in. Maybe in a kinder world, somebody would be offered a helping hand. Maybe in a kinder world, somebody would have the courage to speak up. And when you temper courage with kindness, it is so much more motivational than fear. Because that's what we've been getting shoved down our throats for infinitum, to be afraid. Now I get to work with some amazing people. Mind you, I don't have time to go into how this all happened, but needless to say very quickly, that event got international attention because we got it on the school calendar in 2 weeks. It went to every school in New South Wales, 2,300 schools. They had 400 events in 3 months. And what that told me is the market is right. It is right. The market, people want to do something, but they don't know what to do or how to do it. And when you have the Link Cafe, and when you have Charlie, and when you have Pakistan, you think, what the hell? What difference can I make? What possible difference can I make? I'm struggling as a small business to get my bills paid, to keep my clients happy, to keep my partner off my back because I'm doing this, or do I just go and get a job? The moment I stepped foot into doing this, I had a privileged life. I retired when I was 38. You don't think it was that long ago, but it was. But stepping foot into doing a social enterprise was a new experience for me, and my whole world changed. Everything happened that was thrown in front of me to stop me from doing this. And the thing that I realized a long time ago, particularly in business, is that the moment you are about to succeed, the moment you're about to break through, is the moment when you find most resistance. And that's why it takes courage to go into business. And that's why I'm here. Because you guys can do something. Just one thing. And I'll get on to that in a minute. I got the opportunity to go to Singapore. I was invited to Singapore after these events, and they were the secretariat of the global body. The global body's been around in one form or another since 1963, started in Japan. And on the back of an APEC meeting after the first Gulf War, there was a coalition of the goodwilling. Politicians, after an APEC meeting, got together and said, let's form the World Kindness Movement to try and bring about something positive to offset all this fear, hate, and violence. And that was led by Japan and then by Singapore. So they contacted me and said, look, Australia was an original signatory, but we haven't heard from you for a while. We've lost contact. No one, would you be prepared to step in and take up this? I said, well, yeah, it's really exciting. So they came to Sydney, they had a General Assembly, we hosted it, and with that we got an invitation to go to London with the mindset to put a bid in for Australia to become the new Secretariat, to lead the global initiatives to change the world. Because up until then there was a lot of frustration. Basically this was a warm and fuzzy project, it was a mutual admiration society. You're doing great work. No, you're doing good work. No, you're wonderful. No, you're more wonderful. You know, it was all really nice people doing great things about doing random acts of kindness and doing this and doing that and making awareness. And Singapore gets $5 million put into from the government to put into creating kindness culture in the country. And they had a kindness index, and they looked at this index, and there were two questions. One was, are you kind? And all the respondents said, yes, La, I'm very kind. Further down through the paper, there was another question. Has anyone been kind to you? And all the respondents said, no, La, no one's been kind to me. So people thought there was something wrong with the index. But when I look at that data, I said, well, what it's telling me is there's not an issue with the index. There's an issue with recognising, acknowledging acts of kindness. Can anyone recognise an act of kindness that happened this morning here? Well, that's one, yes, that's been invited, people being invited. But there was, in the presentations, there was, I picked up that there's a beautiful lady over here with a hair salon who's offering to help people that are struggling to come in. I heard the story about somebody who cares so much about their job with the pregnant lady in the massage. I heard about Mike. Not only is he a plumber, but he solves people's problems. Man, I'm going to talk to you about my neighbour. Great. So there's so many acts of kindness that are around, but we just need to identify. We need to take the blinkers off and be aware. So what happened was we came up with a strategic model. Now you heard that I did some stuff in strategies for the Olympics, and what I do is you deconstruct. So when they say, oh, we need 4,000 staff for the Olympics for 2 weeks in 2000, in 4 years' time, what's it going to cost? How are we going to do it? Da, 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 da. You have to learn to ask the right question. That's how you solve a problem. And more often than not, we get distracted by asking the wrong question, focusing whether it is on money or focusing whether it is on this, when we've got to go down to the foundation, the root cause of it. And the problem in 97, I said, is there's not going to be finding 4,000 staff for the Olympics. The problem is going to be, why can't we find staff now? Solve that before you look at doing that. So that's what we did. So how do you create a kinder world? So you've got a job, you're going to go to London and you're going to put a bid in to change the world. What are you going to do? How are you going to do this to actually make it real? Because I can tell you right now, if the canary in the cage is the sign that the air has become toxic for those people working in the mines, what does it take for a global village to realise that their culture has become toxic? Because I think our canary in our cage is when our children start choosing to end their life. And if you could have one wish, you get a genie, one wish to change the world. You could say remove famine, remove disease, world peace. Pick anything you like, and you would make the world a better place, but it wouldn't solve all the problems, would it? You'd still be left with something, yeah, world peace doesn't mean people will be nice to each other. Doesn't mean that there wouldn't still be disease. There wouldn't still be poverty and famine, horrible things happening to children. But if you wished for a kinder world, and you want to reboot where we're at, that's where it starts. And I've got to tell you, it is easy. It is so easy, surprisingly easy. You don't think we got all those recommendations and endorsements and all this traction? We signed up China. Who does that? 1.4 billion people have to be involved in this campaign if you're going to change the world. So it has to include everybody. So we got a situation where we came up with a strategy, presented it to London, and that involves you. Because cities now have an opportunity to be listed as a world kindness city, providing they meet some simple criteria. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. In fact, what we look to Osama bin Laden. He had a model. His model seems to be working. Why don't we look at that model? In fact, that's just happened in the Northern Beaches. We got a lone wolf crusader, Linda Pang, who started with an idea. And you know how she got in contact with us? Through London. Social media. Introduced to me, we connected, and Feel Good February was born. Within it going into the Manly Daily, it then went to the Telegraph. Within going to the Telegraph, it then went to Channel 9. And on Channel 9, it's then gone into the social media space, and it's gone into this. And if I don't see you on the 28th at Linda's event in Manly, I'll be very disappointed. But that's how it starts. Instead of promoting fear and hate, what is to stop people from setting up a cell within their own organisation, having their own goodwill ambassador, and participating? If your council is going to sign up to this and they move a motion at the council meeting, same as a business does in the boardroom, to support the campaign for a kinder world, but they put some traction to it by appointing goodwill ambassadors, same in the classroom. That's what we can do. And my hope from this talk today is not that, yes, individually we'd love to see you doing stuff, but if BNI, whether it is in Perth or whether it is in Sydney, Northern Beaches or whatever, gets that motion through their conference and signs up to support a kinder world, you don't know where that could lead, because these declarations are not for the politicians, they're actually for everyone. And maybe these declarations will inspire someone, inspire that spark to get out and do one thing, get out and do something, because you do make a difference, but you've just been sold to the fact that you don't think you can. Don't be intimidated by the drama in the world, be inspired by it. It's a call to action. So I thank you for allowing me this time. I may have spoken a little bit over. Sorry. And I'll let you get on with your meeting, but I don't know if we've got time for any questions. I'd be happy to answer.
Maybe one or two quick ones. Thank you.
What was it about your mum?
About my mum? Oh, right. Yes. Well, I had to try and convince you from a 40-minute presentation to change the world in 15 minutes, so I cut a lot out. But our vernacular has, do-gooders is a bad thing. Good guys finish last. If you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything. And what does that mean if you actually don't say anything?
Well, the person
You're excluding, you're ignoring them. And exclusion is the most powerful weapon we have known to humanity. We use it since we had fire, banished from the tribe, banished from the club, expelled from school, excommunicated from church, disowned, and you end up in jail if you're not doing the right thing. And if you're in jail, you're put in solitary, but it starts with the words, "You can't play with us." And my hope is that when that happens, there'll be a voice. And that voice says, yes, you can. It'll be a kid who's prepared to put their popularity at risk through the courage to be kind, to speak up for somebody else. So yeah, Mum's got a lot to answer for, and so does her mum. If you have nothing nice to say, then dig a little deeper. How hard can it be?